So we have another update when it comes to the AEW and Impact Wrestling working relationship. Now I know we've talked about this ad nauseum here on the channel. We've talked about it over and over and over again, but the reason why we keep talking about it is, well, for a variety of reasons really. One, because it's obviously what everyone is talking about at the moment. It's obviously what is the buzz of the pro wrestling business right now. As we get closer to Impact on Tuesday, more and more people are discussing what is going on about this. But also the reason why we keep talking about it is because it feels like every single day we hear a different story, we hear a different update, or we hear something different about what this relationship consists of and what it's actually going to be going forward. And every time we get an update, it's something different. It's something that we haven't heard before. It's something that contradicts the previous report, contradicts the previous update. It's difficult to find out what's truly going on at the moment because we're hearing something different all the time. And it looks like no one really knows what this relationship actually truly is between AEW and Impact Wrestling. So we've got another update. And basically, let's do a bit of backtracking. So, of course, Wednesday, Dynamite. The winter is coming, special edition of Dynamite on TNT. The end of the show with Kenny Omega winning the AEW World Championship basically established that there is some form of a working relationship that has been created between Impact Wrestling and All Elite Wrestling. Of course, this was established when Don Callis, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, assisted Kenny Omega in becoming the new AEW World Champion as he defeated Jon Moxley at the end of the episode. Of course, once this shocking title change had took place, Don Callis and Kenny Omega then quickly exited Daly's place. They get into a car outside of Daly's place. Alex Marvez asks Don Callis and Kenny Omega what's going on. Don Callis then says, "You'll find out Tuesday night on Impact Wrestling on Access TV." This got everyone buzzing. Impact Wrestling's website crashed because everyone was like, I don't know what's going on, this is crazy. Impact Wrestling has since come out and said that Kenny Omega, yes, the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega, will be making his first appearance as AEW World Champion, giving his first comments as AEW World Champion on Impact Wrestling on Access TV tomorrow night, Tuesday night. It's going to be massive. So everyone's been talking about it. Everyone's been discussing it. We've heard a variety of reporters and journalists say that the relationship has been in the works for a while, that it's this, it's that. It's crazy. We've heard the Wrestling Inc., Nick Houseman of Wrestling Inc. say it's not that intertwined, it's just a one-off, and that's essentially tit for tat. Kenny Omega's appearing on Impact on Tuesday as a favour to Don Callis, a longtime friend and mentor to him. We're then hearing that in response to this, because Tony Khan signed off on the idea, that in return, AEW are getting a match between Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, facing off against the Young Bucks, and we're hearing that Don Callis might be leaving Impact Wrestling, moving to AEW as a full-time manager for Kenny Omega going forward. We're then hearing Mike Johnson of PW Insider basically say, well, that's not what I've heard. I've reached out to all my sources and nobody is saying anything. Everyone's keeping very quiet on this. And now we've heard from maybe the most official source out of all of this, and that's an executive vice president of AEW who has spoken on the matter, specifically Nick and Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks, because the Young Bucks have sat down for an interview with the Living the Gimmick podcast to talk about the new relationship and much more. Now, during the chat, Matt Jackson noted that basically nobody knows what this new relationship between AEW and Impact means for the two promotions, but he revealed there are, quote, some big surprises coming. So let's get into this quote that he said on the podcast. He said, quote, "It's still so early. I don't think we, all of us, collectively know what this means. I think we're just dipping our toes in right now and we're going to see what we can get out of it. But there are immediate plans that I can't exactly give away right now. But my dream, if I had it my way, I just think about the possible dream matches. People are already hitting me up like, oh my God, can you imagine if it was the Young Bucks and the Motor City Machine Guns 10 years later? How can you not jump ahead and fantasize and fantasy book? Are we going to do that stuff? I'm not sure yet. We're still in the beginning of this, but there are some big surprises coming and I'm really excited about it." So when he's talking about those immediate plans, I think he means the Good Brothers and I think he means Kenny Omega on Tuesday, but he's basically saying there, look, we don't know the situation. We don't know what this relationship is. We're dipping our toe in and we're not sure. We're not sure what the future really brings when it comes to this working relationship. So once again, another day and we hear another version of what this relationship can and possibly will be with Impact Wrestling and AEW going forward. Now, thankfully, this speculation about what this relationship truly is, what it means going forward, all of this stuff, thankfully, we don't have to wait too long. That's the positive thing now. We don't have to wait too long. We're going to find out relatively soon what this means. Impact Wrestling, of course, is tomorrow on Access TV, so we're going to hear these comments from Kenny Omega and Don Callis. by all accounts, by the rumors are suggesting we're going to have this match or this angle with the Good Brothers shot tomorrow on Impact Wrestling, or at least the start of this feud, this storyline between the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks. That's going to be started tomorrow, so hopefully we don't have to wait too long. We don't have to keep speculating and keep hearing these reports of different versions about what the relationship truly is, what it actually is going forward, what we're going to see going forward. Thankfully, this is hopefully going to die down and we're going to have some more clarity on the issue. But it's the craziness of it all. It's the craziness of it all at the moment that we're seeing so many different contrasting reports. And as I've mentioned previously on the channel, when you hear all of these contrasting reports, so as I mentioned, Nick Hausman of Wrestling Inc., he's saying it's a one-off. He's saying it's a favor by the new AEW World Champion Kenny Omega to Don Callis, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, longtime friend and mentor. He's saying that Tony Khan signed off on it. In return, the Good Brothers are facing the Young Bucks in an AEW ring in the future. It also said Don Callis is leaving and he's actually moving to AEW. He's leaving his post as an Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, moving over to become a full-time on-screen talent and manager for Kenny Omega in AEW because his contract's expiring. It's a ton of news. And then in contrast, as I mentioned, you've got Mike Johnson of PW Insider saying, I've asked everyone, but everyone's saying silent. Now you've got the Young Bucks saying, it's too early to say anything, really. We're not too sure. We're dipping our toes in, but big things are coming, and we're really excited about it. Now, as I mentioned, the big things, I think, when the Young Bucks are talking there, the big things are the Good Brothers. But if we're to believe what the Young Bucks are saying, it's kind of what we all thought at the beginning, that this is basically a feeling out process. And as I mentioned previously, this was the point I was going to make a second ago, that when you hear these different reports, when you hear reports that conflict each other and they're contrasting and they contradict each other, where's the truth really lie there? Most of the time it's somewhere in between. If you've got one report saying this, another report saying that, most of the time it's about here. It's about in the middle of where the truth really lies. It's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. But if we're to believe what the Young Bucks are saying, it is in the middle, essentially. You've got Nick Hausman saying it's one-off, it's not really a relationship. You've got Mike Johnson saying, I haven't heard anything. And then you've got the Bucks in the middle saying, we're not actually sure. And they're executive vice presidents of the company of AEW. They would know. I mean, unless it's being kept so under wraps that only Tony Khan, Don Callis, and maybe Kenny Omega truly know what's going on. If we're to believe what the Young Bucks are saying, there really is no grand plan when it gets to this relationship. It's more of a situation where both companies are like, we're trying to figure this out. We're trying to see if this works, how it benefits both of us mutually, and if it creates buzz and people are excited by it, which obviously they are. We've done a variety of videos on the channel. If you look at pro wrestling social media, it's all over it, and this is days removed at this point. This is 5 days removed from Dynamite. People are still talking about it. People are really hyped up and excited about Impact tomorrow and Kenny Omega's appearance, even if it is just a vignette and a promo. He's not going to be in the ring or anything like that. People are excited and talking about it. If this creates buzz, if people are excited, then we can continue to do more in the future, which as a fan and as an onlooker, as a fan of both Impact Wrestling and AEW, this is exactly what I want to hear. And I think as a community here on the channel, I think it's what everyone wants to hear. Let me know in the comment section if this is the news that you want to hear, because I think it's a lot of what people want to hear on social media because it's exciting. And the Young Bucks are talking about what we were all talking about on social media and here on the channel. They're talking about dream matches. Now, I mentioned previously my definition of dream matches. Do I consider any matches between the Impact Wrestling roster and the AEW Wrestling roster, do I consider that to be a dream match? No, because again, my definition of a dream match is a match that actually can't happen. The only place it can happen is in the dreams, is in your imagination. It can't happen in reality. Why? Because different generations, different times, maybe it's people that are no longer with us, etc. That's my definition of a dream match. Nevertheless, it certainly opens up the possibility for fantasy booking, and that fantasy booking perhaps potentially coming to life. The Young Bucks have mentioned there, what about a match against the Motor City Machine Guns 10 years after the fact? The matches they had in TNA Wrestling when they were Generation Me against the Motor City Machine Guns, when the Motor City Machine Guns at the time were TNA World Tag Team Champions, it was insane. Full Metal Mayhem. I think they even had maybe an Ultimate X match, if I recall correctly. They had some incredible matches during their time there. Some of the best tag team matches that TNA had at the time. They've got back then they had a really strong tag team division. Beer Money was in there as well. So I would love to see it 10 years after the fact. I think both tag teams, if anything, they might even be better 10 years later than they were 10 years ago. And how great would it be to see the Young Bucks come back and compete in an Impact ring? Would they be Generation Me? I think at this point they will probably just be the Young Bucks. Impact doesn't own those names. The Young Bucks do, but if there's that relationship between them and AEW, they can use those names. And there are some big surprises coming. Now, as I mentioned, the big surprises, I think, are the surprises that we've seen reported, whether that's the Good Brothers facing the Young Bucks in an AEW ring. Maybe they mean something different. That was only speculated on. Like I mentioned, these are only reports that I think might be a lot of guesswork involved here. And again, a lot of the different reports are contradicting and in contrast to each other. So there are some big surprises that they know about. They're excited about it, which as a fan makes me excited, because if they're excited, then they know the fans probably are going to really dig this. And they are still at the beginning of this relationship between both promotions, and they are figuring it out, which does fly in the face of this argument that this is all figured out, it's not intertwined, it's just tit for tat, and that's really it. Well, the fact that they're going, oh, it's not intertwined, they've already planned out what they're going to do, the Young Bucks are saying, we don't know what we're going to do, which really does contradict that initial report. So it doesn't feel like that initial report that said, it's a one-off. It doesn't feel like that's right now, because you've got more people saying, no one knows the situation, unless these guys, Nick Hausman at Wrestling Inc., unless he is really, found the ultimate source there. It doesn't really look like anyone in the company really knows the situation, let alone something that detailed of all these variety of topics coming out of this. And as I mentioned before, if it was a one-off, if it was tit for tat, if it was just not very intertwined, I think many fans, and this was my initial reaction, the video's out there to check out, my initial reaction when I heard that was, this is super disappointing, because a lot of fans expect more and wanted more because of the way that the start of this relationship, the start of this angle was shot on Wednesday night on Dynamite. It was massive. It made social media explode in addition to Sting's debut. Impact Wrestling's website crashed. Why? Because it was the biggest Dynamite of the year. It was the first time the AEW World Championship had changed hands on free television. It was arguably AEW's biggest episode of Dynamite they've ever done outside their first ever episode. You've got all of this going on. It's a TV special. Earlier on in the night, you had Sting debut. You have this World Championship change. You have this big angle where Don Callis gets involved and they run out of the arena. And instead of saying, tune in next week to Dynamite to check out what's about to happen, they say, no, tune in to Impact Wrestling on Tuesday on Access TV. And that made people's heads explode. Everyone was excited going, what does this mean? And pro wrestling storylines in 2020, that doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't. I think at this point, as a fan, it does feel like when it comes to pro wrestling, you've kind of maybe seen it all, or with most storylines, it's like a recycled or an updated version of what we've seen in the past. You can kind of tell, especially if you're a seasoned pro wrestling fan, like myself, I've been watching it for over 20 years. If you're a seasoned pro wrestling fan, most storylines, you can kind of see where the destination is. Sometimes it's not exactly where you said, but you can kind of see where the chess pieces lie and where they're going to move them. Whereas this one, no one has a clue. And as a fan, that is so enthralling and quite liberating, actually, to actually have something that we don't know what's going on. And that's why people are so excited, because we haven't really seen much of this ever, really. This storyline where maybe Kenny Omega and Don Callis stole the AEW World Championship and took it to Impact. I think back to that CM Punk storyline in WWE 2011 when he left with the WWE Championship. I think he made a very select couple of indie dates in there, but imagine he actually showed up with some other promotions. Imagine WWE went legit with this and they said to Impact at the time, or whatever, or Ring of Honor, show up on a Ring of Honor show with the WWE Championship. Could you imagine how much buzz that would have got? Now, the counter-argument would be, well, no one in the mainstream knows what Ring of Honor is, blah, blah, blah. But the people who really cared and the people that really tune in and really are invested in the product would like that. And that is essentially what AEW's audience is, especially Impact Wrestling's audience is. That's why this has got so much buzz. So the storyline that Kenny Omega and Don Callis stole the AEW World Championship, took it to Impact, holding AEW ransom. They took advantage of the naive billionaire fan owner in Tony Khan. That is such a good story. That is such a good story. And then you've got people like Dave Meltzer, Dave Meltzer, you can't rule out his connections with AEW. I know his connections with Impact are a bit iffy. His connections with AEW are strong. He is good friends with Tony Khan. Tony Khan grew up reading the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and he responds to Dave Meltzer very often. So if Dave Meltzer says something about AEW, a lot of the time he's probably spoken to Tony Khan or someone very, very close to him. And Dave Meltzer saying, it's the Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel scenario of the interpromotional match where Bobby Heenan helped manage the AWA champion Nick Bockwinkel into the interpromotional match against the then WWF champion Bob Backlund in the 70s. As soon as Dave Meltzer says that, Don Callis starts posting pictures of that, which is why people think that this is the storyline direction that they're going in. And you can expand on this. You can expand on this massively. And when the Young Bucks say big surprises are coming, yes, they might mean the Good Brothers, but then they could mean something so much more. They could mean a possible pay-per-view. Can you imagine? I mean, I don't know. I think pay-per-view is a bit of a dying art, to be honest, and pay-per-view doesn't drive revenue, that, to be honest, in pro wrestling anymore. TV drives revenue, so would a pay-per-view of Impact versus AEW do well? It would do well. I don't know if it would drive massive revenue. What about a TV special, though? That's where we're really talking there. Because like I said, the revenue driver in pro wrestling in 2020, it's merch and it's TV. It's mostly TV, to be honest. That's why AEW is profitable in its first year. That's why WWE, there's the billion-dollar company it is today because of the billion-dollar deal with the likes of Fox. TV drives revenue. So could you imagine how well a TV special, Impact versus AEW, simulcast would do on TNT and Access TV? It'd be huge. And think of the possible matches. I know, like I mentioned, people won't say dream matches, but there are certainly some interesting and exciting matchups that we never thought we could see. Whether it's Jon Moxley versus Sami Callihan. I've mentioned this a few times. The reason I keep saying it is I'm trying to wish it into existence, I think. Put it out there in the universe and it will happen. Could you imagine Jon Moxley, Sami Callihan in a death match, an unsanctioned match, whatever you want to call it? Go back to their CZW days. They were tag team partners, the Switchblade Conspiracy. Imagine meeting again in an AEW ring or whatever ring it's in, and they just go crazy on each other. Bloodbath. I mean, I'm not huge on those matches. I think they can be done correctly, but sometimes it's OTT. I want to see it with Moxley and Sami Callihan. I want to see Chris Jericho get a young talent from Impact Wrestling, whether it's Chris Bay or Ace Austin, and just elevate them to the next level. Jericho would want to do it. His best friend, Don Callis from Winnipeg, is an executive vice president there. Why wouldn't Chris Jericho get involved in this? And Kenny Omega, world champion versus world champion. That's a true interpromotional match replicating Bockwinkel and Backlund in the 70s. Is Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann the next version of that? I don't know. But you can definitely move some parts and make it happen. Can you imagine if Kenny Omega was both the AEW and Impact World Champion at the same time? Can you imagine the buzz that would get? It would be huge. So the reports are so all over the place right now. So all over the place. One, it's not a working relationship. Two, I don't know. And then the Young Bucks saying, well, there is something there, but we're not really sure right now. It's interesting. It's fascinating to me because I think right now we're probably looking at the scenario where AEW and Impact have kind of agreed to do this initial thing, which is where I think the one-off report comes from. Say, look, we're going to do this thing. Omega on Impact as a favor. The Bucks are then going to have the match against Good Brothers. But I think they're open to doing more. I think they're saying, you know what, if this does well, if we do get buzz, we're open to do more, let's do more. And the Young Bucks are evidenced by that with their words. And everyone's buzzing. Social media and fans are buzzing. More importantly, maybe the talent are buzzing too. The industry is buzzing. Can you remember the last time everyone was so excited for an episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV? No one's been this excited about an episode of Impact since the days on Spike. So that was years and years ago. And you've got Kenny Omega and Don Callis on top of the Bucks saying that surprises are planned too. There's pictures of Kenny Omega and Don Callis traveling with each other. Now, I think they're trying to imply they're traveling to Impact when we know that all the footage for Impact for 2020 and the early part of 2021's already been taped. It's very obvious that the Kenny Omega Don Callis appearance is going to be a vignette that's going to be edited into the show. But quite frankly, at this point, does anyone truly know the nature of the relationship between Impact and AEW? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no, and I don't think anyone truly knows what's going on here, apart from maybe Tony Khan and Don Callis. I think they are the ones that really have the idea of what's going on. Everyone is saying something different right now, which I like. Isn't that the way pro wrestling should be? Pro wrestling should keep us guessing and keep us imagining things. And it goes back to my point about this relationship and my disagreement with people going, oh, this is such a lopsided relationship. It's not. It's not, because people are buzzing. AEW has buzz about this, and they're getting talent from it in the Good Brothers. Impact, obviously they benefit massively. They're going to probably do their biggest number on Access TV ever tomorrow night. They're getting huge exposure on TNT, and they're getting talent in the form of Kenny Omega appearing on their show. So there is so much more they could do here. And there is so much more they could potentially do, and the huge discussion and amount of discussion it's generated is proving that there is more they can do here. That they've really only touched the tip of the iceberg, because we haven't really seen a relationship of this nature on this kind of stage before. Yes, we had the WWE and ECW crossover in 1997. That was a crossover of sorts, but it was only on a few occasions. I think the best evidence of that is the episode of Monday Night Raw from the Manhattan Center, which is still talked about to this day as one of the best episodes of Monday Night Raw ever. So why wouldn't AEW and Impact try and replicate that? Why wouldn't they? It makes total sense, and you can again expand it even further. This feels like it has the potential to be something bigger. Whether that is just a storyline with more crossover, whether that is a TV special or a pay-per-view special or a talent trade, or even if you open up and it goes so well, regular appearances by talent on either show. And again, you've got Don Callis' contract right now. I think the Don Callis contract story is interesting because, like many people have said, and I totally agree with them on this comment, an executive contract doesn't just expire like that. It just doesn't. It doesn't work like that. If Don Callis, easy for me to say, had a talent contract, if he had a talent contract, that would be different, because he would be an independent contractor and he would sign for a period of time, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. If he's an executive, which he is, executive vice president, one of the executive vice presidents of Impact Wrestling, he most likely is an employee of Anthem and Impact Wrestling. So an employee of Anthem, he would have an employee contract. They just don't expire. They don't have an expiration date. Those employee contract works like most people that are employees around the world. Those employee contracts, if you want to leave, you have to work out your notice period or work your notice period, whether that's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, a month, 2 months. Some cases in some big companies, it can be like a year or something like that. It can be a ridiculous amount of length. Nevertheless, those kind of contracts don't just expire like that. Again, it might be a case where Don Callis is an independent contractor. That would be really surprising to find out that a vice president, an executive vice president of a company would be an independent contractor. That would be really surprising for me. I wouldn't put it past Anthem, but it would be shocking. I would think that, considering the position in the company, he would be a full-time employee. It's interesting. And with this discussion about Don Callis potentially leaving, there's also been a little bit of a narrative online. Well, what's the use of Don Callis to Impact? What's his use to Impact Wrestling? We have a relationship going on right now between AEW and Impact Wrestling. Without Don Callis, that doesn't happen. That is evidence alone of the importance and the worthwhileness of Don Callis to Impact Wrestling. He made this deal happen. His connections in the industry with Kenny Omega made this happen. And therefore, getting to Tony Khan made this deal happen. Without Don Callis, it doesn't happen. That's the value of Don Callis in this industry, is his connections. I mentioned it before, people laugh, but it's true. There was rumors about Chris Jericho coming very close to Impact Wrestling in about 2018. People would say, it's not going to happen, and it didn't happen ultimately. But Jericho's been on the record saying, yeah, I was interested and I was going to do it. Why? As a favor to Don Callis. If they open up this relationship, Jericho's going to go to Impact. He will. He'll make an appearance on Impact Wrestling. Why? Because he's friends with Don Callis. It depends on if Don Callis is there, of course. But it's absolutely fascinating. And if you're Impact Wrestling, of course, you want to continue this relationship for as long as possible. But going back to this interview with the Young Bucks, it sounds like the Young Bucks want it to continue as long as possible too. So you go from one extreme to the other. So from one point you get, it's only a one-off, it's not really that intertwined. Now you're getting more positive noises coming out of this. So quite frankly, there are a lot of different noises coming out of this. Whether it's less intertwined, whether it's, I don't know what's going on, we're not hearing anything, to the Bucks saying, we don't know, but we're really excited about it. Nevertheless, I stick by my point. If it works, and if there is buzz, and if people are excited, more can happen. I think that's going to be the case here. I really do. I think that's what we're looking at, is that people are excited, people are energized by this, the talent, the fans, social media, everyone, and I think it will continue. Of course, again, the fortunate thing is now we don't have to wait long. We don't have to wait long to find out. We're going to find out tomorrow night on Access TV for Impact. So super excited about that. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the latest development when it comes to these AEW and Impact working relationship reports? What do you think about the Young Bucks comments? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow night on Access TV? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, NXT, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. We're trying to grow our community. It's all about sharing opinions, voicing opinions, discussing pro wrestling, discussing what we love to watch, and that is pro wrestling. So be sure to leave a comment below. Really enjoy the interaction that you guys have. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.